Continue to keep a close eye on it. Meanwhile, my next guest, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, has been criticized for a, quote, isolationist ideology regarding U.S. foreign policy. But when it comes to the ISIS crisis, well, the conservative senator is shifting gears, calling for the president to destroy this terror network militarily. Here to explain exactly what that means is Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky. Sir, how are you?
Hey, Sean, glad to be with you.
You don't like when people, and you read it all the time, so I know you're aware of it, but you don't like being called an isolationist, do you?
Yeah, and you think people would kind of get it. I've been trying to say that for the last 4 years in public life, that I'm neither an isolationist nor an interventionist. I'm someone who believes in the Constitution and believes that America should have a strong national defense and believes that we should defend ourselves. But when we do it, we should do it the way the Constitution intended, and that's that the president should come before Congress and make the case for war.
Like George Bush did. He got the authorization for the use of force. He got Congress's approval.
It's a big difference. It's a big difference between doing that and doing it unilaterally. And I think the example of Libya, with both Hillary's support for it and President Obama's support, shows all the unintended consequences when they go around the Constitution. In Libya, these jets, 15,000 surface-to-air missiles, our embassy, having to flee. Supposedly, jihadists are swimming in the embassy swimming pool. So, I mean, the Libyan war is a disaster, but they didn't do it the constitutional way. They did it on their own without constitutional authority.
All right, so we have ISIS saying, we'll see you in New York. We're going to raise the flag of Islam in the White House. And now they have beheaded 2 Americans. Have they declared war on us?
Yeah, without question, they are a threat. And in the past, Hillary Clinton has said ISIS is not a threat to the United States.
But is that war? Is that a declaration of war? In other words, the 9/11 Commission report said, again, after 9/11, they were at war with us. We weren't at war with them. Is ISIS declared war against us through their actions?
Absolutely. And I think what we should do is then come to the American people, a good leader. If I had been president, I would have called a joint session of Congress this August, brought everybody back from recess, and said, this is why ISIS is a threat to the country. This is why I want to act, but I want to do it in a constitutional manner, and I want the entire American public to come together, to galvanize support and say, you know what, this is something we can't take. We're not going to let our enemies behead our journalists. We're going to have to let them become strong enough to attack our embassy.
Let me ask you this, because post-Vietnam, post-Iraq, Afghanistan, if I'm the parent and my son died or he gave up a limb, we lost 4,000 Americans in Iraq, 58,000 in Vietnam. Because wars become so politicized in this country now, and we don't fight them to win them, I'm thinking, well, why did my son fight for Fallujah? Why did my son fight for Tikrit? Why did my son fight for Mosul? Why did my son go to Iraq? If this president politicizes it, pulls out, doesn't provide the intelligence or the training, and we lose a war that we won. So what is America? We've got to come to grips with it. If we go to war, we better win this thing.
And all the more reason to have the debate before the war, not after the war. And I would argue the intervention isn't always the answer. I think in Libya, it's made the world less safe. It's made the jihadist groups more emboldened in Libya. I would say the same thing in Syria. I think that President Obama's support for the Islamic rebels has allowed ISIS to grow stronger in Syria, and they never would have grown this strong without weapons from, or their allies getting weapons from both us, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar. So really, we have done a disservice and created chaos that's allowed the jihadists to grow stronger.
I don't know if I buy that narrative that we're responsible for this, because I do believe every radical Islamic group in some way, shape, matter, or form, they share a common denominator. They hate Israel, they hate the West, and they want to commit acts of terror. So
I couldn't agree more. I agree with you. I would say, though, that President Obama's policy of dethroning Gaddafi, of going after Assad, has made the jihadists stronger. I don't say we're responsible. I don't say America's responsible. I say President Obama is responsible for bad policy.
Obama, if he draws a red line in the sand and doesn't follow up on it, that shows weakness. Let me ask you this question. So we have Putin now invading the Ukraine. Islamists have now taken over our embassy in Tripoli. You got ISIS beheading Americans, and Obama says he doesn't have a strategy. And then he gives contradictory remarks in Estonia today. And I'm thinking, does he have any clue what's going on? What is going through the mind of the president, and what should be going through his mind?
Well, what should be going through his mind is that he should be obeying the Constitution, which means he should come to Congress. We should have a big debate in Congress and with the American people. And he's not going to do it. But therefore, he actually weakens the presidency, weakens America, and weakens everything we stand for if he's not willing to obey the Constitution.
All right. Senator Rand Paul, good to see you. Thanks for being with us.